Okay, let me welcome both Ben and Steve to the stage here. Again, we're going to be talking a little more on some of the luxury sectors that Ben and his team are working in. And my pleasure again to have Steve up on stage. We have worked together. We have known Steve a long time in the global e-commerce space, and we'll let them both talk about their experience. First just in a self-introduction, then we'll start to share some of the slides here. So, Steve, yeah.
Right. So, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see a lot of my old friends from many years ago here that I haven't seen in a long time. I decided to do this slide of my history because I think what it describes for me is a little bit different path than most people take. A lot of people I heard today are within a couple of verticals. If you look at my journey through my career, it's across many different industries. And one of the things I did notice when I put this up was there's a lot of family-owned companies, which has its own dynamics when it comes to making choices out there. But as you can see, Reader's Digest to Lego to hospitality, and then my last, where I am currently today, I joined Marielle back in 2015. It was acquired by Boehringer-Ingelheim in 2018. And so I'm currently the head of, it's a cool title, of pets, platforms, and portals. And pets could have different meanings depending upon the context of where you are.
But Steve, you had almost 2 decades at Lego, and again, really set up their global e-commerce capabilities, and just trying to share what's changed since then, right? I mean, in terms of corporate expectations for global, digital, where that kind of fits in, just share this contrast where you were back in Lego.
Back in Lego, and as I've gone through. There's always this common sense that e-commerce is easy. I always got the comment, you made it look so easy, so why can't we do it, everywhere? But also, I think for those of you who have been around 20 to 25 years, you may kind of recall the conversation about channel conflict, channel agnostic, channel synergy, omnichannel, and all these other conversations. So those were big challenges for us. I was very lucky that Lego was one of the first people to have what we call a direct-to-consumer business based on catalogs before the internet. And so that put us as a great way to get into that marketplace, and delicately had to walk that tightrope on channel conflict at that point in time. But the expectation is it's easy, it's profitable, and why does it take so long?
And then I'm sure you've spent a good chunk of your career kind of explaining why. Let's turn to Ben now. Tell us a little bit. As you get into some of the luxury side, what's happening with the luxury sector in general? Like as far as global e-commerce goes. I mean, luxury brands were rather slow to kind of e-commerce initially, but certainly feels like they have been rushing to catch up, and really be digital first company. Is that what you guys are seeing, especially from a global and cross-border perspective?
Yeah, sure. So first, I'm Ben. I'm one of the co-founder of Glopal. I'm in cross-border since about 15 years. We help like the major marketplaces design their cross-border program, like eBay and Amazon. Now we're more focused on D2C brands with with a software solution, and we help a lot of the biggest brands, luxury brands like the LVMH group with Kenzo, Loewe, and as well some retailers like Printemps, which is one of the biggest department stores in France. So we get a lot of data point on that. I think overall people always believe luxury brands are for probably older people. There is less sales happening online. But when you look at the data, 40% of the sales they do is online, which is, again, that's not the best industry, but that's already a lot, and it's 3 times bigger than it was 5 years ago. They do 50% D2C. They want an absolute control on the brand experience. They can't afford to use some of their marketplaces on some other channels because they really want to control the entire buyer experience, which is one of their key assets. And they've put a huge amount of effort to make sure that when they go online, they could, own the experience. So that numbers have grown significantly over the last 10 years. But as well, something which is slightly counterintuitive, most of their sales, their biggest generation is Generation Y. So it's always almost later, we all get lost. So I put it here, it's like people born between 81 and 95, which are fairly young people with, they're usually like young professionals, and they're making most of their sales. So they've made a lot of efforts to reach their biggest buyers, and so they're more and more online, and they got a lot of very interesting technologies. So that's a bit of a framework we like to use when we talk to brands. Where are you on the cross-border trade journey? So you can be phase one, so you get some international traffic, you just want to convert that traffic. We like to say that there is usually like between 10 and 20% of the traffic that comes from abroad. Usually it makes less than 5% of the sales, so then what you need to do is working on shipping, having sometimes the local currencies, or doing the tax and duties if you want to have a proper buyer experience. But then most of the brands want to accelerate, because that's not enough, they want to go further, and then they will need to leverage technology to get, or not, or services, to get the content delivered in everyone's language, the buyer language, which is really important. Without the buyer language, we can't do marketing, because then, I'm French, you probably heard that from my accent. I'm searching, when I'm in France, I'm searching in French. And I live in Canada, so I will search a bit in French as well. But you won't do good SEO, you won't do good paid marketing if you're not in the right language with the right frequency. So then it's all about also having all those campaigns, and having all those campaigns. So if you imagine you want to go in 10 countries, you get 100 campaigns domestically, and you want to get 100 campaigns in 10 countries. It's a huge amount of campaigns to manage, and it's not just creating the campaigns, it's maintaining those marketing campaigns with the right amount. Should you show price with or without taxes? Here in the US, the tax come after, everyone is used to pay the sales tax after, but in Europe, every price has to be shown as including the taxes. Taxes are different in each and every country, so that's a bit of the thing to manage. And as well, the local payment that people were, the previous session was about. It's not only having the local payment method, it's also having sometimes local entities. So you see as a domestic, it's a domestic transaction which has a much higher, about 20% much higher conversion rate or acceptance rate in payment. So, and then phase 3 is when you are a big brand. So we work, for example, with Dior, and okay, they're well known everywhere, but then they need to optimize everything they do. So, and they also have very expensive goods. They can't have warehouses in each and every country. So what they do, they got like regional warehouses, and then what they will do, they will leverage their local entity, and they will do what is called B2B2C. So they will first sell to their subsidiaries, so they will pay the duties not on the sale price, but on the production price, which in luxury industry makes quite a difference. And then they will sell to the end buyer. And what's great with that is it's built accountability as well for the countries, because the revenue is accounted in the country instead of being a central e-commerce group that will then be a bit of in competition with the local teams.
Let me pull Steve into this, because again, Steve, I'd like to get your perspective on some of this, but particularly where you've been dealing with regional teams in global organizations. At what point do you start really kind of getting the regional teams really involved in this kind of? Firstly, does this curve certainly resonate?
It resonates a lot. From what I have done, I think a little bit differently. In both Lego and where I am today, we have a very strong country footprint in almost 35 to 50 markets around the world. So a lot of what we need to do is influence, and one of the first things that we always go after, I believe, is I have to earn the trust of the local people. Because that helps me kind of coordinate and pull it all together. But this type of path, Jim, is very typical. The P&L, I will tell you that I had more success at Lego at the tail end of it. I was reporting to the American president as well as the global team. All the sales for the U.S. was given to the U.S. market, so they didn't care where the sales came from. They were very happy that we were able to contribute to their market size. It caused me a little bit of extra agita because I had two bosses I had to try to figure out how to manage, but I found that to be a very effective way. As we were probably mid-sized at that point when I left there, and I think that's kind of the management process that they're going through it. The other thing too, the other consideration, and I'll turn it back to you, is that with family-run companies, for some reason taxes become more important on the conversation table than anything else. So sometimes some of the decisions are bent because of tax reasons.
Yeah, no, again, thanks for that, and we'll try to come back to some of the organization issues. But Ben, keep going. I know you have some other good data slides.
Yeah, and just to finish, so then as well, when you get the buyer in mind, you want to be able to either ship from store. Sometimes, especially when it's luxury, there is limited inventory, so sometimes you need to ship from store, return to store, and all the omnichannel experience. So that's also something that those bigger brands or luxury brands are looking for.
So you're doing that, for example, with Printemps?
So yeah, for example, with Printemps, and there is a case study later, but for example, they are launching two new countries. One is Qatar, because it's one of their, they want to go to the Middle East, and they get Middle East investors as well. So what they do, they open a huge store there, but as well, what they will do to launch the store, all the sales that will happen on their website, which leverage all the inventory they have in Europe, mostly in France. And then it will be delivered, and they can pick up in store as well, so they will get the store better known. So part of their strategy will mean the store recognition, and they will do a grand opening, but they will as well, online will support the growth of the channel, the store.
That's great to hear.
Quick thing about as well technology.
Yeah, please. Again, tell us how you guys are using AI.
Yeah, because one of the things as well is all the brands, they need to figure out what are the best markets, where they get a better resonance, and where the buyer like the brand. And quite often it's all about time and investment. So there is two areas where there is a big room for technology to help in go-to-market. Translation. So usually translation projects for brands are really long. So it usually takes months, sometimes years, to get a local version of a site. You need to, usually get a sort of new sites running. You need to load all the localization. It's a lot of IT and service cost. While the latest evolution in technology with neural AI-based machine translation, which sounds a bit like very technical, but they get a very good accuracy. So 80% of the content is really good. And then you use another machine learning and some other system to try to figure, which will help the machine to say, okay, everything looks great, but in those areas, statistically, it seems like there is some improvements to be made. And then you can direct your team and the translation or the proofreading team to the right part of the site, which saves a lot of time and a lot of hassle. And as well, there is some other technology that do not need to create a new storefront for each and every single country. There is some so-called proxy or hybrid translation engine that will just get on top of your website and just catch the content, translate it on the fly within milliseconds. No, it doesn't create some more load time, and it will really help you. So, I mean, you can try that to get a tablet out of the booth there, but basically you can put your URL, and within basically 20 seconds, the site is available in another local, and so that's really a technology that decreases the cost by a lot and reduce very significantly the time to market. Then usually retailers or brands going into the cross-border journey get some challenges with the compliance piece. So HS code, you need to have all those HS code. In each and every single country or region, sometimes some use 6 digits, some use 8 digits, some 10, some prefer this or that. So it's not like it seems harmonized, as it is in the name of those HS code, but it's not really. And so having a proper AI configured as well will help you to find, in the same way you find the localization, the right HS code. And then with machine learning, so each time the parcel go through the customs and everything, you will learn more. See if it's reclassified, and the machine will learn from it and will get more and more accurate, and will help to generate the right customs documentation within your warehouse. So those are the two main applications. Of course, we also use localization technology for marketing and ads content, where you need that keyword in French, but if you go to Quebec, it's another one. If you go to Belgium, it's again another one. And if you go to Switzerland, which are all French-speaking, they all have some different dialects. It's also happening in English, right? It's, as someone mentioned earlier, a sneaker is not called a sneaker everywhere. So it's all about finding the right, the best performing keywords and the right local language.
The best localization, absolutely.
No, again, really interesting what you're doing here. Please continue.
Yeah, just quickly, and then we can probably move to another point. But why it's important, this localization? It's really important because basically a localized site will convert about 30% better. And when you look at return on ad spend, because there is a lot of component, the ad is important, and the site as well, it's 69%. So if you get people doing marketing in the room, I'm sure you will understand the importance of improving your return on ad spend by 69%, because then you can get a much bigger budget, and then know that's true. Like it makes a huge change, and if you go, then you can fight competition in a much better, with much more power.
We'll pause here and pull Steve in. Hearing a little bit more around from a strategic, planning perspective and organization. Talk to us a little bit around your current role at Boehringer-Ingelheim or BI. And where you've been trying to again engage with different stakeholders again to really remove some of the channel conflict that Ben was talking.
So one of the first things I did was to change the acronym of COE. It doesn't stand for Center of Excellence anymore, at least on my view. It's very important since a lot of the control is in the local market. So I've changed it to a community of excellence. And while it sounds like a slight play on words, when you're in the center, everything is great. But when you're outside the center, it's like it's them or they. And so it's very important that I leverage our footprint that we have around the world. So, and I've told friends, I think Jim on our prep call, I told you that my job is not to get the right solution. My job is to put the best process so the right solution comes forward. And if it comes out of a local market, that's even a lot better. So a little play on words, but it's again about, it's very difficult. I remember in my earlier part of my career, I wanted the authority of the title so I could tell people what to do. Well, now I have it, and it doesn't help all the time. It really is that influencing aspect that you have to, go out and I think the other tactic, Jim, and we all probably know from various countries you have there are easier wins in terms of getting something to work, but also getting that country to be an advocate for what you're asking them to do, and then letting them sell it to your peers out there. That's kind of the strategy that we would be doing. Yes, we follow, where's the best market opportunity? Where are our sales? Where can we go? Locally, do we have the resources available? Because they have many things to do. And of course, the last consideration, the closer it is to Germany, the better it is. So that's life.
But, fair to say, Steve, that a good portion of your time is really managing the whole change management.
Yeah, just listening to my wife. My wife keeps asking me, why are you on the phone all day? What are you talking about? What do you really do? What's digital transformation? And I said, really, it's about changing behaviors. It's a cultural change. And we really have to show it by the way we live ourselves and act and behave. And it takes a while to do it, so it's very important, and that's why I mentioned earlier trust. Because if I can get people to trust me, it's an easier conversation. And you know, what I typically hear at Boehringer is, you know, from a global perspective, and those of you from a local country, their view of global is they always ask for something. You know, we have gotten feedback that you're one of the first groups that help us, and that's where we want to be. So again, I would, my last thing, and I'll turn it over, is that when I go to a market, I listen, and listen. I have lots of ideas in my head, but I don't want to make any comments until I get their kind of impression of what they think of us, what they think the opportunities are.
You know, and I think, you know, for those of you in the room, especially if you're early in your global journey, I think, you know, really good words to keep in mind, because you really have to be the internal champion. Michael, I know that you've had to deal with this, you know, I've married, you know, for years now. Let's come back to Ben here. You've got a couple of case studies you want to take us through, please?
Yes, happy to discuss. Okay, I bring two. So we already talked about this one, Printemps. So again, department store, mostly based in France, and they had a few. What they would call cross-border was Belgium, because they're French-speaking, and that was mostly it. A bit of sales in the UK, but that was fairly limited. So what we worked on with them was really like having a quick go-to-market to test what are the best markets and leverage those. So now they are present in much more markets, like they do the entire European markets, plus launching soon Qatar and launching the US early next year. I think what we've learned is they had a bit of traffic that was not converting. Adding localization and the proper payment routing has made a great improvement. But one of the things I think they've learned, that they've understood, is having all these pulled together with the right SEO and SEM strategy can make a much bigger difference. So they get emails, SEO and paid, and these have we have made great improvement with the conversion, just localizing their site, making sure it's the right language, and all the other setup are really local, with the local payment methods as well. But what was most important is having the right marketing strategy, and we helped them a lot on that. So they doubled their conversion, but they especially multiplied by 5 their sales, mostly thanks to the marketing. And as well, they got in Qatar and some other market, they got some very smart strategy with leveraging their other channels. Another example, it's a brand. So probably, I don't know if you know that brand. It's Loewe. It's part of the LVMH group. It's a brand out of Spain. It's like LVMH like to call them not brands, they are maison. And those maisons are usually got an history, and they try to keep that history, and that's very important for them. It's mostly leather goods and fashion. And what they managed to achieve in the last 4 years is to grow their international sales by 15. And it's not like because they started from nothing. We are talking about millions here from the start. So what they managed to do is just, they first really like to, they put an effort to ship in the best way possible to their buyers. That was their effort one. And they used not only good express shipping, they got some very nice white glove shipping methods where some carriers can deliver to your door in white gloves and really help you to get the full experience of the brand. They got some special carriers in Japan that are providing an improved experience as well. And over the years, they managed as well to, thanks to having the right localization approach and having a better understanding who are their online buyers, they managed to really have an impressive growth, putting more and more marketing dollars as well. And then they put a lot of optimization in place with some B2B2C model. So they are leveraging their subsidiary in the US and in Japan to drive the margin, to really improve their margin. Overall, they're saving millions in those countries where they have subsidiaries. And they are are also direct in China, which is pretty unusual. There is not a lot of brands that have their own. When I mean they are direct, they usually leverage marketplaces or some usual Chinese channels, but they get a local team that is doing most of it. They are not partnering with some agencies that take care of their Chinese business. So they have done quite a lot.
So I know we're actually over time here, so I'm going to ask you both to kind of provide some closing comments here. But then I'm just curious, for maybe whether these client examples, what would be next for them? So again, 15 times growth in a short period of time. Clearly you guys have done a fantastic job. But what comes next for a brand like this, or what comes next for like a retailer like Printemps?
So what comes next? That's a very good question. There is two things. There is like coverage. So what's next? There is some more country to bring into this cross-border journey, and as well they are putting more and more effort in the omnichannel part, which I think is key, right? They want to leverage. They usually all have some very nice and beautiful stores in the best city in the world, with very good staff, knowing a lot about the product. So they always try to leverage that type of channels.
And that could be a whole other session we could get into on that.
Definitely.
But, it's great to kind of hear where the omnichannel initiatives really are, showing the payback really. Steve, last comments here. Like, what's next? At BI. Like, I know you were talking about some of your own AI, challenges and data sources.
Well, one of the big opportunities for us is digital products. And there's a concept called patient health generated data, And what's really good about that is that it gives you more sample points that you can actually do it. And about 5-6 years ago, I did this for a nonprofit where it was a rare disease. Basically, the patient was asked to fill out a 7-question questionnaire every day about how their life was going, how much energy they have, how do they feel. And before we had this app out there, the typical conversation with the doctor would be, how you doing? I'm doing good today. But it's changed. It's changed to now, well, if I looked at your 90 days, you were good 60, but you had a problem here. Let's talk about that. And that to me is a significant change that we have in the marketplace. A pretty cool thing that we have out there in the marketplace is a microphone. That's not cool. But the microphone is in a pig barn. It listens to all the pigs, and it can find out which one is sick. Now, that is very advantageous in today's world because what it can do is identify the small group that needs to be quarantined, gets the right medication. But that's kind of this whole concept of AI and how we're using, because there's a lot of machine learning that needs to go in there. So that's where we're going. What I do today is basic blocking and tackling to get us into a better shape for that.
Platforms, yes. Okay. Well, guys, thank you very much, for joining us, here today and sharing your experience. Thank you.
Thanks.